Hi guys, welcome to a new reading vlog. I am very excited for this one. It's been a while since I have sat down and filmed, as you can tell from my hair being a whole different color. Ironically, I was trying to get the ginger out of my hair and added more ginger. I've made my peace with it. I don't dislike it. Yeah, I've just made my peace with it. But for today's video, we are going to be reading some of the books on my summer TBR. I am still in the mood to read a lot of the books on my summer TBR, which is good because sometimes I make a list and the books stop appealing to me because I make it for the moment and then, you know, it doesn't always stand the test of time. However, I'm still in the mood to read a lot of them. So I actually just read 2 romance books. I read Phoebe Bierman and I read Our Perfect Storm by Carly Fortune. And surprisingly enough, I'm still in the mood for a romance, but I'm in the mood for something a bit more serious, I think. Not that the other 2 weren't serious. They just had a very rom-com-y aspect to them, especially Phoebe Bierman. So I think I'm in the mood to read Found Time by Caroline Goldstein. I've mentioned this before, but I do believe it's a literary sort of romance. On the back it says it's a second chance romance that questions whether a whirlwind, week-long love story can still stir something 3 decades later. I didn't know that. I knew it was a second chance, but I didn't know that it was 3 decades later. That's a lot. Wow, I'm really curious to see what this book is going to be about. Obviously, like it just said, it's a second chance. We follow Lily and Reed, who meet at a Jeff Buckley show. I'm really excited. This is going to be my first book from A31 Stories, and I love their minimalist covers. I think they're really cool, and I have really high hopes for this book. So I hope it doesn't let me down. I hope I've picked the right pick. And yeah, let's get into Found Time by Caroline Goldstein. And welcome to the video. Hi guys, I feel like I should update because I'm already at part 2, Found Time, so I want to give a little update. I actually already have a lot of thoughts, mostly because I'm really enjoying it so far. So the first thing is I actually loved how she threw us instantly into the story. I was very quickly into it and understanding the characters, painting the picture very well. Also the fact that they meet at a Jeff Buckley show and that it's the Live at Cine show and that there is an album for that performance really made me feel as though I was with them and I was listening to that album as I was reading. It enhances the book so much because it makes it feel very real, and I also really like the New York City setting. You can tell that the author knows what she's talking about. Some of the places are really brought to life, and I think she managed to do that very well. Another thing is I think she did an amazing job with Reed's character, at least personally, because he is so charming and yet he's still believable. Like, it just, I don't know, he's pretty great, which is obviously something that I want out of a romance or literary romance or whatever. I really liked that, and I really like their meet cute. I really enjoy Lily's character because the decisions that she makes in part 1 is something that I think is pretty brave, so really like her for that as well. I'm so curious to see what's gonna go on next because it's 30 years in the future, which is a lot. I feel like I've never read such a big time jump. I'm curious to see how they've evolved as people, they've seen each other in between. I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting. Also, I'm wondering if I was wrong about this book and if it is a bit more of a romance than a literary fiction. Like, I feel like it follows the conventions of the romance genre a little bit, but it still doesn't read exactly like a contemporary romance, so I don't know. That being said, it would make sense for it to be more of a romance than anything because it is by A31 Stories, and if I'm not mistaken, they publish romance books, or romance novellas, I guess, since this one is pretty short and most of their books are pretty short. But yeah, so far really enjoying it even more than I expected to, and I think it's because I was instantly into it, and also because I'm very charmed by this man. So far, so good. Okay, I have 80 pages left in Found Times, so I'm planning on finishing it this morning, so I want to give some thoughts before I do. Since we last spoke, I read a little bit of the present perspective, which takes place 30 years after they meet, and they find each other again. They're now both in their 50s, both have daughters, and I guess they're reckoning with making sense of where they left off and where they are now. And I think this is the first time where I read a second chance romance where it's been this long since they first met and since they last spoke, because it's 30 years and they're well into their adult lives now. And I actually think I like it because it's been really realistic in painting their adult lives. And I also really enjoy that it's not this miscommunication thing that brought them apart and that it's more realistic. I find that that's my overall consensus so far, is although there are very beautiful and romantic parts, they're very much grounded in a sense of reality, which makes them even more romantic to me. I really like the characters together, and I really like both characters' daughters. They're kind of playing matchmaker, so I think it's kind of fun. I think it's exactly what I wanted to read at the minute because I was still in the mood for a romance book, but I didn't want it to be too rom-com-y or full of tropes and stuff. And it's really not like that. It just feels very real, but it's still a romance book. I don't know what book to compare it to, but it's less on the literary romance side, like a book like Open Water, for instance, but it's also not an Emily Henry or a Carly Fortune. It exists in a space in the middle, and I really like that. But I'm also really curious to end it because I feel as though the thing that made them stay away from each other for so long and that brought them apart is still very much in the picture. So I'm curious to see how they tread that and how they are going to work through that, and if they are in fact. But yeah, this makes me really want to read more books from 831 Stories. And I realized that at the end of this one, there's the first chapter to one called Exit Lane, which I'd heard about a bit, so would be interested in maybe reading that first chapter when I'm done. But yeah, I'm gonna finish it this morning and I'll let you know my overall thoughts and what we're going to start next. But just so you know, I'm really enjoying it. I finished it. I really, really enjoyed it in the end. I think it treads the line between a more traditional rom-com and a more literary fiction romance so well. It was the perfect balance, I think. And despite the fact that it is overall quite short, I felt very attached to the story and to the characters. I really believed in the romance, and I really liked how they communicated with each other and their conflict resolutions. I thought that was really nice. It wasn't brimming with tension and unsaid things and confusion. I think it was very healthy in a way, and that's why I found it very realistic. And then she'd sprinkle in some of the best parts of a second chance romance, those being things like the characters having missed each other in the time that they weren't together and thinking of one another. But she always kept it within this more actual and possible aspect. I was very pleasantly surprised with them being in their 50s because I was a bit worried when I saw that. It was 30 years later since they last met, because I think it's not the easiest thing to write. Such a big evolution for the characters, but you can clearly see that they have become parents. And I think the act of becoming parents made them communicate with each other better, and the daughters just added a little bit of the more rom-com aspect to it, which I really liked. The setting in New York was also really nice. So yeah, overall, I really only have great things to say, and I'm really happy that I read it. It's exactly what I wanted to read when I read it. I also found out that 831 stories means 8 letters, 3 words, 1 meaning. I think that's so cute. And also, I know this is a very trivial thing, but all of the 831 stories covers are very minimal, and sometimes when you read in public you don't want to have the cartoonish characters covers, or even worse, the shirtless men. So I think they know what they're doing with their marketing. But the drawback from that is that I thought this was a literary fiction romance, and it is more just a romance. Although, like I said, for me personally, I think it exists in an in-between. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, I would really recommend it. Yeah, I really loved Lily and Reed. I loved their connection. I loved how they met, and I only have great thoughts. So that was the first TBR takedown from my summer TBR. I'll figure out what I'm gonna start next and I'll come back, but I highly recommend this one. Hello, so as you saw, the next book that I started is The Bright Years by Sarah Demoff. Before I get into some initial thoughts, I just want to kind of give you the theme of this book without really going into specifics, rather just the overarching theme. And I would also not recommend reading the back, because I think I personally went into it blind, and I think that that's the best way to do. So the overarching theme is addiction and generational trauma, and then I think we get 3 points of views in this book. Some of my initial thoughts are that I really liked the moment where the prologue started to make sense. It took me a bit, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but it took me a bit, but when it did start to make sense, I really enjoyed that. I was also not planning on annotating this one, but I really like the way that Sarah Demoff writes, so I did end up starting to annotate. There are ways that she expresses things that I really like. Let me give you some examples. For example, this quote, which is something I've written about personally, so that's why I underlined it. She said, "It always surprises me how much space emptiness can take up." Or this one, which I really loved. "He has remembered that I'm more than who I am to him." Anyway, so far really liking it, really enjoying the first point of view that we're getting, really enjoying how the story is unfolding, and I already feel very attached to the characters, which is really nice because it does make me invested in the events that go on, and also curious to see what's gonna happen. A bit worried as well. So far, so good. I'm really excited to continue, and I will come back and update when we're further in. Hi guys, I'm now at page 195 of The Bright Years, so I thought I would update. I am very close to the third point of view of the book, which is why I wanted to update before that. I am really liking it. I think the jump from the first point of view to the second was very shocking, but also very well written and well done, and the things that are explored in the second part of the book are really interesting and very well treated. I think there's a very big distinction between how both the first point of view and the second point of view talk and understand addiction and their relationship to the person who is going through that addiction. There are still so many quotes that I'm loving, and I think it's just overall really explored very well as a subject. It makes sense because I found out that Sarah Demoff did go to Harvard, I believe. So she's a very smart woman, and you can tell the way that she treats these events and the things, but specifically the addiction, is very, very accurate and understanding. It does not feel trivial in any sense, which I really appreciate. I'm really loving this, even more than I expected to. I think I got very attached to the characters, and it really pains me to see them go through what they are going through. Another thing that I really love is that we jump timelines, so every new chapter is like a new year, and so the time moves very fast, but she doesn't explain what went on in between. She just kind of shows you where the characters are at this specific time. It's a lot of showing rather than telling, which I'm really enjoying, and I think it's making the whole thing better. And it's not long enough that you don't feel connected to the characters anymore. I'm really, really, really enjoying the way she wrote it, especially because I've been having a bit of a harder time with multiple POVs, but this one, it just makes so much sense and it's really good. So I'm really, really enjoying it so far. I think the structure of it is really nice, and I think the subject and the way that it's written is also something that I really enjoy. So far so good. I'm really scared to end it. I wonder if I'll cry. We'll see. But yeah, so far really good, which I'm really happy about, because both this book and the previous book that I read I'm loving, so that's always a very exciting thing to feel. Hi guys, I meant to finish this vlog off a while ago. I actually had started a new book that I wanted to include in it, but I didn't end up updating about the book at all, which is why for the rest of summer, that just being August, I've decided to kind of mix my summer vlogs with reading vlogs as I read from my summer TBR. So hopefully the next videos will have 2 or 3 books. We'll see how many I manage to read in August. I love reading in the summer, but it's also inevitably a month where I get busy, and so I don't necessarily have the most time to dedicate to reading. But we're gonna finish off this video here, and I'm gonna give you my final thoughts on The Right Years by Sarah DeMoff. I ended up really, really enjoying this one. I think the subjects that it explores are tackled extremely well, and I am sure this is by virtue of Sarah DeMoff being a social worker. I think she handles them with a lot of care and a lot of understanding that people who don't have her career may not have. I ended up crying at the end. It really touched me. I really enjoyed the points of views that we were getting and how they were brought up. I really liked the evolution of the story. It all felt very realistic and hard at the same time. The closest comparison I have to this in my head, I don't know if it's necessarily a good comparison, but it is The Names by Florence Knapp, which I have said before, but my main critique of that book was that I thought that a lot of the tragic events were kind of just put there to be tragic, whereas with this one, the tragic things that happen felt a lot more realistic, and so they hurt me more, I guess. I'm really, really curious to see what Sarah DeMoff has written next, which is The Burning Side, so I'm very excited to read that one when it comes out in paperback, as always. I'm also really glad that I ended up annotating it because I didn't think I would, so the beginning isn't, but I think some of the quotes in here were genuinely really beautiful. I would highly recommend it. I don't think it's necessarily a summer book at all, actually, but if you're interested in family dynamics, in generational trauma, I think this is a really, really good book. And I particularly liked the distinction between each character's voices that we were getting. I don't know, I really, really enjoyed it. Whether it was writing about romantic relationships, friendships, the parent and children's relationships, even the grandparents and children's relationship, I think she did everything extremely well. Yeah, I really have like no negative thought when it comes to this book. I really, really enjoyed it. It didn't end up being a favorite for me, but really, really, really liked it. it, and I'm really glad that I read it. It's definitely a book that I could see myself rereading and enjoying even more on a reread. So yes, I'm really glad that I read it. I will say I think the reason that it may not have been a favorite is just because I unexpectedly adored Found Time. I think I might bump that book up to a 5-star just because I was so surprised with how much I loved it, and I'm trying to be a bit nicer with them. So I think I might that one to a 5-star, and I think I might give this one maybe 4.25 or 4.5. But yes, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I also had such a fun time going to Richmond in London and Oxford. Again, if you're new here, then you might not know this, but I did a summer exchange in Oxford 2 summers ago, and it was one of the best times in my life, and I look back on it so fondly, and it was so meaningful to go back, and seeing the horses was just the cherry on the cake. So yes, I'll see you next week probably for my July wrap up, and if I manage to get some editing done, I'd ideally post it a bit early for you guys to compensate for the lack of videos over the summer. I just haven't had the time to edit, so I've been filming but very little editing. But yes, thank you for watching this one, and I'll see you very soon in my next one. Bye!